Hello guys, and welcome back to TSN, or the SASUKE Nerds. Following the release of the English subtitles, we have the long-awaited Takeshi's Castle Revival Review. So before we get into the positives and the negatives, we're going to explain how this works, because not everyone knows how this show's format works. So essentially, 100-something hopefuls show up and take on the starting game, which is, in every episode, the slippery wall. Upon completing it, they're split into separate groups, usually about 2. And each group takes on a different game than the other. Whoever fails any of these games attempts one of 3 repechages, which, for those who aren't aware, is basically a second life. The 3 comeback games include one very iconic Takeshi's Castle staple, Can't Save the Ball, as well as 2 newcomers, Tug of War and Slimy Quiz. Or, if you're lucky enough, a Fighting Spirit prize will give you a free pass to the next game. For those unaware, a Fighting Spirit prize is something that you can be awarded in Takeshi's Castle, though it was much more scarce in the original series than it is here. These Fighting Spirit prizes are usually allotted to the competitors that either give the best effort or have a very funny fail. With that said, whoever is left by the end of the second game will face another game on their group's path, essentially repeating the cycle. The competitors that remain after this, or make it back via another repechage, will form one big group, the Takeshi army, so to speak. The competitors that are left will face one last game, usually harder than the others. Whoever beats this will participate in the final battle, usually known as the Showdown in the challenge dubs. In the original show, this would usually be a kart battle involving lasers or water guns. In the reboot, it is a 1 in a million ball shot. If anyone manages to land a ball in the funnel, they will win 1 million yen. So let's get into the aspects of the show I like, as well as aspects I dislike. Starting with the good. The biggest thing I love about the Takeshi's Castle reboot is how it embraces its past, such as past contestants returning, as well as characters from the original returning, such as Takeshi Kitano and Hayato Tani. That's a very nice thing to see, as well as the original games being dealt a great hand of justice. While you may be quick to say that the repechages are stupid, I can kinda see why it would be justified, considering, compared to the field in the original show, these are much more prominent contestants, so you gotta make the most of them. Hell, if I can see Yusuke dominate on this course, I don't mind. Something that's very important with Takeshi's Castle is that it's funny, because whether people realize it, Takeshi's Castle does lean more into the comedy rather than being a strictly serious sports show. And I think it does a pretty good job. The fails are on point. I can appreciate the efforts that the show kind of comes to be funny. Even though it can fall flat sometimes, there are moments in the show, such as the old man in Honeycomb Maze. Call my humor stupid, I thought it was pretty funny. On top of that, even though people were initially hating on this show because Masato Inui was somewhat involved, I don't think it really had an effect. I think the set design looks wonderful, especially at night. Stuff like Mushroom Trip is beautiful. It looks way better than, say, Takeshi's Castle Thailand, which was all over the place in its set design. On the topic of Mushroom Trip, I really like it as a penultimate game. I'm surprised it was not used more often, honestly. But with that said, that puts us at the end of my positives for the reboot. Let's get on to the stuff I didn't like. So to start, I thought the Super Size Games episodes were alright. but it was definitely pushing it sometimes with the difficulty, especially in execution. It was very botched at times, especially around the strong arm and the Strait of Gibraltar. I wasn't too much of a fan of that. Doubling on that, the results made this feel like an episode of Sasuke Splat-A-Lot at times, with how many Sasuke competitors clear the events. And it's not a problem with the Sasuke competitors. I don't care if Yusuke completely dominates. My problem is when Sasuke competitors are the only people who beat it, because I feel like part of the draw with Takeshi's Castle is that random jobbers would, show up and, perform well in the events. It's something a jobber could do, not an athlete. And on the topic of games that were way, way, way too hard, Slipway. I hated Slipway and how it was done. It was just ruined. It was a terrible portrayal of the game. So for those who didn't watch the episode, you would push the board off and, you would land in a certain area, same as usual. However, this time, they messed it up. You know how they messed it up? They made it so you had to land exactly on the dot, which is ridiculous. Who in their right mind would think that's possible? That's the equivalent of trying to win one of those ring toss carnival games. It's just not feasible. And there would be times where competitors would land within an inch of the arrow, but it just wasn't there, so it didn't count. And they didn't even enforce the rule, because the final girl that showed up to Slipway, they just let her through. It's just completely outrageous because they didn't do that with another guy. You either enforce the rule or you don't enforce the rule. You can't have it both ways. That ends my thoughts on the Takeshi's Castle reboot, however. I promised someone very special that if I were to do a video on Takeshi's Castle, I would have him on to tell the viewers about his story of going on the show. So, as the video comes to fruition, please welcome a very special guest, Joshua Murphy. Hello.
Help get me on the show. So I am the first little background. I guess I know more about Takeshi's Castle than any English-speaking person on Earth. In March of 2022, my friend sent me a link, a Japanese link, and I read it, and I thought it said that they were going to put the original 1980s episodes of Takeshi's Castle on Amazon Prime. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how that'll work with the thing. You go, no, read it again. And I read it again. It's like, oh, they're bringing it back. And I remember reacting, thinking, well, this will be interesting. Not, yay, it's coming back, not anything to that effect. I was just like, well, how are they going to pull this off? And COVID was still very much, I know to some extent it still is, but it was very much a thing at the time. I'm like, how are they going to do this? And in April, they opened up auditions, and it was an online audition form in Japanese. And I translated some stuff and filled in the form and sent it in, thinking full well they were going to say sorry, but no. And it took a while. Like, I couldn't get it to go through for the first, I don't know, few weeks. And then I tried it in a different browser, and it's like, oh, okay, it went through. So I have no idea what was up with that. It would not work with Google Chrome. So if you tried applying through Google Chrome and it couldn't go through, that might be why. So it went through, and I think it was like 3 weeks later, I got a very generic email that said, congratulations, you've made it past the first portion. We've accepted you for an interview. Fill out this other form. And so I filled out the other form, and one of the conditions of the form is you had to pick a prefecture in Japan that you lived in. And I don't live in Japan. There was no option. There was no not applicable option. You had to pick one. I'm like, well, it's over. So I picked one, sent it through. And my whole point of doing this was not to get on the show. It was just to make these people aware of the fact that this guy exists, me, so that if they want to use me for some future project or want to interview me or something for this special, they know that I exist. I sent in the thing, again, fully expecting a sorry, no to come back in the mail. And I get a, congratulations, you've made it through. Pick a time that, one of these applicable times for a Zoom interview. I'm like, okay. So I fill it out, and then I get a thing. It's like, yep, your interview is going to be in 2 days. So I'm like, okay, I need to get an interpreter. So I went online. I hired an interpreter. Nomura-san, hi, if you're watching this. I briefed him on what it was. He briefed me on stuff of that nature. We go into the interview, the Zoom interview. It's a waiting room, and I hear them talking to him because I can understand enough Japanese to hear them going, "Who are you exactly, Nomura-san?" And he explains he's the interpreter for me. And I guess they said, okay, that's fine. Again, I fully thought they were going to say, no, you can't bring an interpreter. So we go into this interview, and I'm asked very basic, why should you be picked type questions. What makes you unique? I show them the merchandise. I show them the script I have. I show them this guy right here, the original. Let's see, dude, can you read that on camera? Let me know if you can't. Yeah, Shun Takeshi Castle TBS staff jacket. So this was a jacket worn exclusively by members of the staff. I'm not a staff member, but yet I have one. Showed them that, showed them some of my other Takeshi stuff, and they're like, okay, well, that's cool. And then my interpreter said, do the trick, do the trick. So there were 133 original episodes of Takeshi's Castle. Can you pick a number between 1 and 133?
22.
Okay, 22. Let's see here. Episode 22. The games in that episode were Swamp of the Border, First Fortress, The Devil's Mansion, Kinoko Depan, Sumo Depan, the Ryujinike. Okay, then it was Corinto Depan, Gibraltar Kaiku, the man-eating holes in the cart battle. Fighting Spirit Awards went to someone in the maze. Yeah, it was the maze. Guy who fell over in the maze who came back for episode 100. Then the second one went to a woman who crossed the bridge perfectly. And then the third one went to a guy in the cart battle. He came back for episode 100. And I can do that with any of the 133 episodes you want. And they said, wow, you know the show better than we do. And we get off this interview, and it very much feels like a, okay, thank you, we'll be in touch type interview. We get off, and my interpreter says, they said they want you. I'm like, wow. So, and they also said, you have to, and I fully was aware of this, because again, I did not think I would get on the show. They said, if you want to get here, you have to fully finance your way here. Like, we'll gladly have you on the show, but you have to get here yourself. And I'm like, I can do that. So the next day, I do the next day. I'm trying to remember the exact order. I printed off the paperwork to get a passport. Sunday, I went and got my passport photo taken. Monday, I took the forms to the library and waited eagerly to see if I would get a passport before they would begin filming. And fortunately, they did. The system was working that day. So I was prepping everything and learning the names of the games in Japanese, because the trick doesn't really work if you're doing it in English on a Japanese show. So I learned all the games in English, prepped, thought about what I would bring, what it was going to be like. I also had no clue what it was going to be like being on the show. I knew that some photos had leaked, so I'd seen pictures of the set, some of the games that we knew would be there, some we didn't, et cetera, et cetera. And on August, I guess it was August 10th of last year, I got on a plane for the first time in a long time and flew by myself to Tokyo, Japan. And I remember getting to the airport, going through customs, and the customs manager was an older guy. And again, they ask you, like, why are you here right now? And I told him television. He goes, what television show? And I show him, because I was wearing it on the plane to save luggage space. So I show him the jacket, and he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're good. I'm like, okay. So I went through, and for the first time in my life, I was in Tokyo. So that was the 10th. So I had the next day to kind of just sort of enjoy being there and avoid people, because I didn't want to get COVID. That was a big concern going into all this, was because I knew that if I tested positive once, it would be over. Got there, had the day off. The next day, They had to cancel the first day of shooting because there was a typhoon, but they said they were still going to shoot the second and third day. I woke up at 2 a.m. the day they were going to shoot. I could not fall back asleep, and I thought, well, why not? Went to the station, the Eki, and got on a train headed towards, I want to say Shibuya, and then got off there, and then got on a train from Shibuya to Aobadai. Is it Aobadai? Yeah, Aobadai. Got off, walked out, went through the, I think it was the west exit, or maybe it was the east exit. It was the east exit, and walked down the block, and they had buses that would take us to where they were going to film, to Midoriyama. So got there to Midoriyama, got my number. I'm number 12, and they assigned a half Japanese, half American person to basically babysit, another contestant to essentially babysit me and make sure I understood all the instructions, because I was the only one there who did not live in Japan. I don't know if they said that in the show or not, but I was the only one there that lived there, that did not live there. So I was the only one coming in. And again, I met a lot of people, and when you meet a lot, there were a lot of foreigners, contestants. I don't know if you saw that. There was maybe like, I don't want to say at least like 15 foreigners. And so when you're a foreigner, you ask like, how long have you been in Japan? 12 years, 3 years, 9 years, 4 days. It's like, wait, did you come here just to do this? Like, yeah, weird, ain't it? So then we shot the opening, and then we go to where like all the games are set up, and it was almost like Jurassic Park, because this photo's online of this like sort of doorway that led into the set where they had all these games. And it was like 97 degrees with humidity off the charts. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. And they prepped us for the first game, which is getting over the wall. And they're like, this is how you go down the wall. Do not go down face first. You will slide down like you're going down a slide at a park, because they don't want people getting hurt. And they gave us all life jackets and crash helmets and elbow pads and gloves. And so they say, go and do all this stuff. And again, I'm not going to tell you about every game I play because I want you to watch the show. But I will tell you about the slope. Is I held back on the slope because I wanted to see other people do it first, so that I could see, like, is there some trick to this? Because I didn't know. I'd seen it on the original show, but I didn't know if they'd changed it for this show. So I held back, and I saw that it was okay, and I wanted to make sure I made it over the wall because I didn't want to go 7,000 miles and lose on the first game. And I think they show this in the episode. I'm climbing up the wall, and my feet slipped out from under me, and I fell down the slope to the bottom. It's like, okay, because they were spraying us with like fire hoses. And it's I'm not going to say it's harder than it looks, but when you have a fire hose, I think it shows how difficult it is to get over. So the second time, and I wish they'd showed this, I grabbed the rope, and at the top, I'm pulling myself up, and then at the top, there's another older guy that looked weird. There's an older guy who's sitting down, and he pulls the rope I'm holding on to up, and he helps me over. And then I slide down into the water, and I make it through to the next round, and then after Japanese guy, he came up and said, I help you over. And I hugged him. And that was the second person I'd hugged in about 2.5 years because of COVID. Like, so thank you, sir. And he helped me over. So yeah. And then we prepped for the next games, and that was pretty much all she wrote. And again, you can see it in the episode. And again, I have nothing but good things to say about the experience of being there, about being honored just to have been a part of it. I'm fully aware that I was a novelty. I'm fully aware that they, did a lot to get me there, and I have nothing but appreciation and can't say a bad thing about the experience.
I imagine it was a dream for you, though.
It was. It was. Yeah, it was surreal, because it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just weird. It was like going to summer camp, but like the best summer camp in the world. And it was an honor. And I've told people, I realized that like after I got back, I realized, wait a minute, I got my cake and I ate it too. Like, I've officially done everything that I ever wanted to do in life, every major thing. Anything that happens after that moment is just icing on the cake of my life, as far as I'm concerned. So think about that. I won at life, basically, is my attitude.
Yeah, I mean, You were such a fan of, Japanese game shows that you ended up on a Japanese game show. None, no less your favorite one, you know?
Yeah, it was. I think I can say that I walk the walk. Like, I don't think someone can go, well, what makes you so damn special? I mean, they could, but it's like, well, what makes me so special? I'm the one guy on earth that went there by virtue of his fandom to another country just to be on the show. So I think for me, again, I don't know how schmaltzy you want to go with it, but for me, Takeshi's Castle is, to me, it's more than just people falling in mud or people doing challenges. It's like it's an experience, it's a show, and I've seen this show affect lives and change lives for the better. And again, I can't go into too many details, but it's like it's a nostalgia. It's something that people just, it's positive. And in this world of win at all cost, crash, betrayal, I didn't come here to make friends. It was nice to have a television show that everybody's rooting for. I will say this: everybody is rooting for everyone to succeed. When I was there, nobody was going, boy, I sure hope he falls. Nobody was going, I hope I look better than that guy. Like, everybody wanted everybody to win. And that's something that I think is sorely needed in this world more than ever.
Yeah. I always loved that about Takeshi's. The only guy you're going against, technically, is, Takeshi himself.
Yeah.
It's, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The winners are, ordinary people, basically.
Yeah. And I went in fully with the attitude of, like, I don't care if I win or not. And I think everybody kind of went in with that attitude. Like, we just want to be here to do this. And one of the things I didn't mention is because we all had numbers. Like, think of like a name tag, but with a number on it. It was an easy trick to do, is to go, what's your number? And then do the trick to where it's a games. And half of the people absolutely did not give a crap that I could recite the games. They were like, we came here to be on a game show. Like, it's cool. Thank you. It's nice, but I don't really want to hear a foreign person talk about names of games. And then the other half looked at me and thought, oh my God, this guy is real. This is a real person. Like, we didn't hire an actor to be this guy. We didn't, make this guy like this guy who somehow was not alive when the original show aired, doesn't live here, doesn't speak our language, yet somehow knows more about the show than we do. Thank God we found him. Thank God we were able to get him here. And thank God we were able to do a show with him, because we're never going to find another guy like this ever again. And again, that feeling of being wanted for something, I don't know anything else in the world that can replicate it. And no, I didn't break any bones or get hurt. There's some story behind that, but we'll save that for another day.
That's a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. Edited. I don't think I said anything slanderous, so edit it however you want. And yeah, I look forward to seeing the finished video. Oh, can I just say it myself so that you don't maybe Not Undercover Cop 327, link in the description. Check out my videos about Takeshi's Castle, about Doors, about other Japanese programs. And in there is also the BGM Challenge, which is if you're the first person to identify one of these songs used on Takeshi's Castle, you'll get some money from me. Leave in the from me, because that's important. If you use that, because, yeah.
Alright, thank you very much, Josh. That brings us to the end of this video. But before we sign off, I'll tell you my conclusion of what I thought about the reboot. In conclusion, I thought it was pretty good. I will leave it up to you, though, whether you think it compares to the original 1980s series. But I think it puts up a very respectable effort. Most reboots of shows are awful. Very, very awful. See, when most shows try to live up to their past, Spoden certainly tries. So does Legends of the Hidden Temple. Sasuke as well. But I feel like Takeshi's recaptures some of that magic, which is always something that can be appreciated. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Josh, for talking about your experiences. Make sure to subscribe to him, by the way. Give him some love. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next video. See ya.